Control over. Have the power to run something. The musician had to have control over their breathing while singing. Claiming your rights can help you feel like you have control over your life. Parents should have control over what their children watch on television. It's important to have control over your emotions during a stressful exam. Adequate for. Enough for some need or requirement. The amount of money saved was not adequate for the emergency. The instructions were not adequate for me to complete the task. The safety measures were not adequate for the new construction site. The amount of sleep I got was not adequate for me to function properly. Contribute to. Help by providing money or support. Several factors might contribute to the development of the disease. All of these factors may theoretically contribute to her depression. Nowadays, ecotourism contributes substantially to the local economy. We believe that each of us can contribute to the future of the world. Detrimental to. A formal way of saying harmful. Not getting enough sleep can be detrimental to your productivity. Mistrust can be detrimental to group projects and hinder progress. A severe infection can be very detrimental to the animal population. The long-term effects of smoking can be detrimental to your health. Emerge from. To become manifest, become known. The truth began to emerge from the depths of the investigation. The flower will emerge from the bud when it's ready to bloom. The new fashion designer will emerge from the fashion school. The country's economy began to emerge from the abyss of recession. Exception of. Something that is left out. The beach was beautiful, with the exception of the litter on the sand. The hotel was luxurious, with the exception of the noisy neighbors. Everyone has to follow the rules, with the exception of the teacher. The weather was perfect, with the exception of the sudden rainstorm. Associated with. Two things are connected with each other. The devil is often associated with temptation and immorality. The color yellow is commonly associated with sunshine and brightness. These indications are particularly associated with migraine headaches. The cancer risks associated with smoking have been well documented. Consideration for. Continuous and careful thought. He made a rash decision without consideration for the consequences. Selfness can lead to a lack of empathy and consideration for others. 3 sites are presently under consideration for the animal's habitat. Compromise is a way to show kindness and consideration for others. Dependent on. Influenced or decided by something. The outcome of the game is dependent on the team's performance. The ecosystem is dependent on balance and harmony to thrive. Norway's economy is heavily dependent on natural resources. Some people become dependent on intoxicants to cope with stress. Distinguish between. To separate or mark off by differences. We must distinguish between what is urgent and what is important. Can you distinguish the difference between a violin and a viola? He could no longer distinguish between illusion and reality. It is important to distinguish between a hypothesis and a theory. Aim at. To have something as a target. Their aim was to maximize the productive capacity of the company. These advertisements are specifically aimed at women and children. These early efforts were principally aimed at limiting child labor. Make sure you aim at the target properly before you pull the trigger. Connection with. A relation between things or events. The police arrested a suspect in connection with the robbery. His resignation must have some connection with the recent scandal. Police arrested 5 young men in connection with one of the attacks. Police interviewed a 43-year-old man in connection with the murder. Irrespective of. Without thinking about or considering. Every adult pays the same amount of tax, irrespective of income. We decided to employ men of ability irrespective of their experience. Irrespective of age or background, divorce levels are on the rise. The rules apply to everyone irrespective of race, creed, or color. Capacity for. The ability to hold or do something. We were impressed by his energy and capacity for hard work. A new baby has an enormous capacity for absorbing new information. Some people have a greater capacity for happiness than others. The human capacity for love comes under especially close scrutiny. Eligible for. Having the necessary skills and qualities. To be eligible for a discount, you must meet certain conditions. Taxpayers may be eligible for tax deductions if they own a home. The emperor's daughter was not eligible for hereditary succession. To be eligible for a loan, you must meet eligibility requirements. Compare with. To look at similarities and differences. Instant coffee just doesn't compare with freshly ground coffee. Spring has come later this year compared with last year. The Japanese are not punctual compared with the Europeans. Autumn is suitable for study, compared with spring in many respects. Consistent with. Always behaving in the same way. We simply have to choose a path consistent with national priorities. The experimental results were consistent with our predictions. We need an interest rate that is consistent with continued growth. Her behavior was consistent with that of other rape victims. Appropriate for. Suitable or proper in the circumstances. The book was written in a style appropriate for the children only. His casual clothes were not appropriate for such a formal occasion. Informal language is not appropriate for academic essay writing. The unit-based certificate is seen as appropriate for adult learners. Abide by. Accept or obey an agreement. Every individual must abide by the laws of the country they reside in. It is important to abide by the traffic laws when crossing the street. Companies wishing to join will have to abide by a code of conduct. We must abide by the rules of the library when borrowing books. Absorbed in. Having one's attention wholly engaged. The audience was completely absorbed in the performance. He was absorbed in his research, spending hours in the library. I find that I am most creative when I am absorbed in my art. He loved to stay absorbed in meditating and clearing his mind. Authority over. Power to direct or control something. Central government has extensive authority over public schools. He was given authority over particular regions of the country. He now has authority over the people who used to be his bosses. Several countries claim authority over the newly discovered islands. Based on. Something on the basis of something else. A good decision is based on knowledge and not on numbers. His opinions sound convincing, but they are based on misconception. The local economy of this country is largely based on tourism. His first novel was loosely based on his own experiences as an artist. Belong to. Be a member of a particular group. The year of birth determines which generation you belong to. It's not honest to take something that doesn't belong to you. She always wears clothes that belong to someone else's style. Because I belong to a religious group, I attend weekly services. Believe in. Have faith in the truth or existence. Shallow men believe in luck. Self-trust is the first secret of success. The school believes in letting children learn at their own pace. You have to believe in yourself. That's the secret of success. There is a saying that miracles are to those who believe in them. Access to. Opportunity to use or look at something. It is important for all people to have access to quality medical care. I won't have access to my work email while I'm away on vacation. Only authorized personnel have access to the computer system. Discussion question: should all citizens have access to free education? Acquainted with. To know or be familiar with something. I need to get acquainted with the new equipment before using it. The students are already acquainted with the work of Shakespeare. Our history professor was well acquainted with ancient literature. Don't be afraid to ask questions to get acquainted with your classmates. Account for. Give a reason or explanation for. The journalist had to account for the accuracy of his report. The lawyer had to account for the evidence presented in court. The manager needs to account for all the sales in the business. The athlete had to account for his poor performance in the game. Alternative to. One of two or more available possibilities. Solar power is now a viable alternative to oil-fired water heaters. There must be an alternative to people sleeping on the streets. In this case, taking medication is a good alternative to surgery. New ways to treat arthritis may provide an alternative to painkillers. Adapt to. Become familiar with a new situation. Now, the city had to adapt to the new transportation system. We need to adapt to the new technology in our classroom. In order to succeed, one must learn to adapt to difficult situations. All organizations need to adapt to changed circumstances. Argue with. Give reasons for or against something. He's a successful man in our country, you can't argue with that. During the debate, he passionately argued with his competitors. We need politicians to argue for us and not against each other. He is really sharp in his opinion, you shouldn't argue with him. Adjust to. To change something so that it fits. It can be difficult for young children to adjust to a new school. Many people struggle to adjust to life during the post-war years. It took a few seconds for her eyes to adjust to the darkness. If you got a promotion, you'd have to adjust to a new work schedule. Contrary to. Saying or showing the opposite. Contrary to our expectations, he was eliminated in the first round. Contrary to what you might think, neither man was offended. The new statement is directly contrary to what was originally stated. Contrary to popular belief, birds need more than just seeds. Equipped with. Having sufficient equipment and supplies. Their living room is equipped with all kinds of modern appliances. The soldiers were well equipped with weapons and ammunition. The roof of the observatory was equipped with a telescope. The commandos were equipped with state-of-the-art weaponry. Capable of. Having the skill or ability to do something. Children are every bit as capable of working wickedness as adults. The superweapon was capable of destroying entire cities. The dancer is capable of performing complex choreography. They built a robot capable of understanding spoken commands. Concentrate on. Give most of your attention or effort. Anxiety can make it hard to concentrate on your office work. He told me to concentrate on my breathing during meditation. I can't concentrate on my reading unless I'm in my quiet zone. Concentrate on your career goals and work towards achieving them. Demand for. An urgent or pressing requirement. The demand for beef throughout the world is increasing day by day. The demand for affordable housing near the city center is high. The demand for renewable energy is outpacing the supply. I think your demand for higher wages is perfectly reasonable.